So we want to build our own overlanding rig. I bought this old 20-foot van. That's 120 square feet of space to work with. How do I fit a kitchen, a living room, a dining room, a bedroom, and a garage into that small of a space? So obviously the solution to this problem is to draft up a floor plan. So there it is. You'll see me come up with that exact floor plan in real time. Where things get interesting is prioritizing some of the details. So the way we've decided to structure this video is on these three topics. Location, just like real estate, location, location, location. Duration, how long are you going to go out there? And comfort. Let me explain.
Wouldn't it be amazing to be able to camping in spots like this at temperatures like this? Currently, you might be able to see my breath. It's minus 15 out. It was minus 20 this morning. I think it's going back down again tonight. So for the full range in this particular section, there's vans that are just limited to only being on the highway on paved roads ever because they got really low clearances and in and out of RV parks. That's not going to work for us. The top end of the spectrum would be a full four-wheel driving van, 6-inch lift, oversized tires, really awesome, but a lot of money and probably more than we really honestly need. So where we're going to sit is a 20-foot long van with a 2-inch lift, oversize the tires. I'm going to install diff lockers to give us additional protection and range, and we're going to put recovery bumpers on both ends of it so that we can make sure that we always get home safely.
All right, I'm out here in the shop to talk to you about the duration impacts on our van layout. For context, the first thing I'd like to note is that for duration, the spectrum, as I see it, and I've got a little figure here, is that we can be from like just one day or one night, just weekend warriors, through to living in your van full time. We've set a target based on our experience and based on our interests for 10 days. It's a little bit arbitrary, and I'm going to talk more about it in a bit. So the other things that I want to talk to you about that impact the van duration is the number of days we mentioned, the seasons. I kind of mentioned that quickly. We want to be out for 4 seasons. There's a generator. I'm not taking it out, so we have to work around that. There's a battery box. Obviously, I need that. And then we need some storage tanks for fresh water, black water, and gray water. All right, 10 days. So in our old van, we used to have a limitation that was self-imposed for comfort of 3 days. Every third day we'd hit a campground. So we'd like to see that grow significantly, so how do you do that? Do you double it? What works? Where we landed, and it's somewhat arbitrary, is we thought a whole week plus a weekend would be good. You figure if you leave the house, go away on a 10-day trip, come back, that's pretty ideal. So then I went through an exercise, was doing some calculations on tank sizes in the room that I had in the van, and etc. And I'll explain that to you with a little bit of a figure here in a different section of this video. So the other criteria that'll impact duration and van layout is 4 seasons. So honestly, the impact is fairly minor, but I thought it was interesting just to talk about it really quickly. So quite frankly, we just need to insulate the van, floor, ceiling, walls properly for it. We are minimizing the windows, which does impact the layout. Some people want lots of windows in their van. Others want no windows in their van. We've got a couple of windows that are high in the van that are smaller. We get to look out of. There's a couple of windows on the back. We're going to do some insulated window shades, which is pretty typical for most van lifers. We've invested heavily into a good heater system. I might even have 2. The generator and the batteries. So the generator and the batteries are both built in, as I mentioned. The generator is quite large. I wouldn't have built it into the van if I was planning it from scratch without it, but since it's there, it's going to be ideal to have. It'll be our advantage and I'll use it. So we're going to keep it and I'm going to work around it. It's actually just fine the way it's been laid out. It is quite a big sacrifice of space, but we can work with it. The negative is the height of the bed is going to become a bit of an issue, but I think it's only going to be a little low where our face is. And then just out from about where we can reach our arms. So sitting up will be open and we can sit there on the bed. So I think that's going to work out pretty good. Quite frankly, we have to live with it. So we'll try it and we'll see how it goes and we'll make modifications from there. The batteries, there's a spot for batteries that's built in and sealed up, so I can put regular deep cycle batteries in and not worry about off-gassing because it's vented fully to the outside. It also is fairly significant amount of space, which is good in the sense that I've got room to increase the number of batteries in there. I think if I built some shelving or something, I might be able to get 4 standard golf cart batteries in there. Finally, the tanks. So we want to have water storage, black water and gray water tanks. Because of the cold temperature requirements that we want to be out there for 4 seasons, we've decided to put the freshwater tanks inside the van. That way they won't freeze. And tank sizes on the inside are impacting the van layout. So 10 days with showers and a flushing toilet are kind of our unique criteria, and they're a big demand, so we need a lot of tank storage. We have a shower and fresh water for showering as a really high priority for us. All right, let's run through the freshwater tank sizing calculations. So I'm going for 2 tanks over top of the wheel arches, left and right, and I've gone to the van, I've measured things up, leave a little bit of room for the plumbing, still fit underneath the bed. Maximum height I can get is 18 inches. Maximum width I can get on each tank is 20 inches, leaving enough room for the hallway. And the full length of the wheel arches is 30 inches, plus or minus a bit. If I take away some percentage for the wheel arch, I figured about a quarter of that size would be lost just to the wheel arch itself. So that's what that is. And that gives me a tank size of 34 gallons times 2 tanks is rounded up 70 gallons of fresh water capacity is the best I can do in this van with this configuration. All right, so now that I know I can fit 70 gallons of fresh water in the van, will I get 10 days, which was my target of use out of that. So if I look at the flow rates for the shower head, 1.5 is about an efficient average. Some of them are higher, some of them are lower. Have a look at your own product and do your own calculations. Military showers are about 2 minutes a piece. That gives us 3 gallons per shower. I've assumed 1.5 showers a day. Badger likes a shower every day. I'm good to go every second day or when I need them. So the shower requirements are about 4.5 gallons every day on average. I've assumed 1.5 gallons per day for drinking water, 1 gallon per day to do dishes, and 1 gallon a day to flush the toilet. We've gone for a full flushing toilet. So that gives me a total of 8 gallons a day. Unfortunately, it only yields about 9 days maximum, but that's close enough. The numbers are rough. I can live with that. All right, so now we need to work out the black and the gray water tank sizes. So you would think that they were just a direct split of the freshwater tanks as it flows through. In our case, it might be true for you, but in our case, it's not exactly that simple. So we're camping very remotely. So most often, I'll be able to discharge safely just onto the ground using biodegradable soaps and that sort of stuff. So I've only assumed 25% tank size because I just want to have a couple of days of capacity in case I'm in a parking lot boondocking or on the side of the highway and it wouldn't be responsible to discharge. So that gives me 2 days if I put it in a 20-gallon tank. For the black water, I don't want to worry about having enough capacity for the black water, so a straight math may leave us a little bit tight or short. That's kind of a critical limitation. So I bumped it up. Arguably, I actually started my calculation at 50% extra capacity. It yielded a 13-gallon tank, but I measured up underneath the van to see how big of a tank I can fit in there, and I actually can get a 15-gallon tank, which just means I have more contingency, which is just much more peace of mind. All right, I'm sure by this time you're asking yourself, have you thought about all the weight and the balance of the van? Yes, I have. Here's the way I've rationalized it. Water's about 8 pounds per gallon. I know it's a little bit more, I believe, but it's okay. For this calculations, it'll be all right. So the tank's all full, is about 600 pounds. May or may not be driving with them all full, but that's the assumptions that I've used right now. The generator's heavy. It's 300 pounds by itself. And I got 150 pounds of batteries and electronic components in there as well. So if I look at each side, On the passenger side, I get the batteries, I get 50% of the gray water. That equals beautifully 50% of the load. On the driver's side, I'm just a little less. I have the generator, 50% of the fresh water, the black water, and the gray water, and that's only 48%. But it's pretty good. That's only a 3% imbalance left to right. The other thing to think about is that I've designed the plumbing so that I can transfer water between the two tanks to rebalance the load if the van is running a little off. We installed 2 swivel seats in the van. They're awesome. We had them in the old van, and it really maximizes the whole cab area as a part of the living space, which is very efficient. Gives you probably about a quarter of the room in your van back. They serve as 2 separate rooms. We use it as the main sitting area, living room if you would, and also the kitchen area. We'll put a lagoon table of some sort in there, and you can sit around there and have dinner, and it's right by the kitchen. Depending on how the weather changes throughout the day, we'll kind of sit there with the doors open if it's kind of a little bit cool outside, but quite beautiful outside. And that way we can have some heat and be comfortable and be cooking and doing whatever and working a project. We knew right away that we wanted the kitchen to be up at the front of the van beside the swivel seats. It puts it right by the front side doors, and that's very efficient for us. We don't need a big kitchen. We're not very fancy cooks at all. We tend to cook a lot more outdoors and over the fire, and we keep it very simple. So having the kitchen up at the front makes a lot of sense because all of our stuff is there, obviously, and we can kind of slip into the van, grab what we need, and go outside and do our cooking over the fire. So worried about having cupboards and counters that would not come open when we were driving, 4-wheel driving on an overland rig, we decided to go with toolboxes. We found 2 toolboxes. One had cupboard doors and the other had drawers that are soft close and really stiff to open. So they won't pop open while we're driving. And everything is built really tough and will last forever because it's a toolbox. It's meant for heavy tools. So we'll modify those and put them in. That's kind of forced us to have the sink on the driver's side and countertop with the stove on the passenger side. We decided not to build in the stove. As I said, we tend to cook outside as much as inside, or maybe even more. So having a separate stove in the drawer that we can just pack out side and use is best for us. And it's just as easy to take out of the box and use on the countertop as well. It was really important to us to have a fridge that was full fridge built in. We chose to put our beds at the back of the van. We tend to separate the 2 spaces with a curtain and treat them as 2 separate rooms. That way if Badger wants to sleep in the morning, I get up and make a coffee and I can turn the lights on and do a little bit of office work in the swivel seats and not bother her too much. In the new van, we chose to put the fresh water tanks down underneath the bed. There's no reason to go down there. We orientate the beds north-south, which is lengthwise in the van. We do that because to put them east-west, we'd have to crawl over each other to get in and out of the bed during the night. The other thing that we learned is if we extend the hallway right into the bed to about your hip level, then you can kind of sit up during the night, swing your feet over, and be standing in the hallway and get up to go to the bathroom and not disturb your partner too much. And really all the width that you need in the bed is not at your feet, it's up at your shoulders. So we found that works really well for us. When I build the new beds, I'd like to kind of have adjustable mechanism on them. I haven't worked out how to do it yet, but leveling up the van every single time you want to go somewhere and stop can be a little bit of a nuisance. And it occurred to me it would be really nice just to be able to level up the beds instead of the van. Having a bathroom with a toilet and a shower and a little sink is really important to us. We're willing to give up the space for that. There's a lot of people that swear by not having an indoor shower or a bathroom, or they'll have little pull-out bathrooms. And that's good for them. But for us, we really appreciate being able to pull over at the side of the road and use our own bathroom and spend the night somewhere and use our own shower. The problem is in the old van, it was just too small. So in our new van, we're going to try our best to give up more space to make it a little more usable. Number one, you need to be able to stand in it with a little bit of headroom to be able to shower. The old van, you could only sit, and there wasn't really enough width to be able to even move your arms to have a bit of a proper shower. So the way we're going to solve the width problem is we're going to have a curtain behind the two doors, and you'll open the doors and the curtain will pin at the bottom with some magnets and push out 8 inches or so on the top, just to give you that extra little bit of shoulder room. Like a lot of folks these days, I tend to do quite a bit of work while we're traveling in the van. Having a bit of a dedicated office space or something set up is kind of important, and it is for a lot of people now. Often I'll work in the front of the van just on one of the swivel seats using the lagoon table, and that's really pleasant actually. There's a lot of windows and I can have the doors open and enjoy a sunny day while I'm working. But sometimes it gets in the way. Badger wants to do a few things in that space in the kitchen. There's plenty of headroom so we can sit there and use the lagoon table, and it's got a mount in the back and the front. It's always code for Charlie when she sees me working back there to come and lay on the bed beside me and just wait for something fun to happen. There's a couple of windows at the front of the van, high up in the fiberglass top. They're located pretty conveniently. They're at eye height when you're standing. One's above the sink, and you can look out while you're doing the dishes, and the other one's above the countertop where you would set the stove up, and you could look out while you're cooking. They both have little sliders on them, and you can open them up and let a little bit of fresh air blow through. The one over by the sink, half goes into the shower room, so it also opens at that end, and it'll be handy to be able to open it up when you're showering and let a bit of the steam out. We'll have a proper fan in there as well. I'm installing 2 windows in the back right by our face that open up. It's really nice to have a cross breeze in the bed, particularly by your face. Just makes sleeping much cooler. There's a couple of windows on the back doors as well that come with the van, and we'll be keeping those. They're very good. Makes that whole space feel less claustrophobic, and of course when you're trying to drive the van, I won't need a backup camera or anything like that. I can see out those windows quite nicely. Like most vans, there will be a garage space out the back doors when they're open. I've sealed it off from most of the other van as best I can, and I'm going to leave it built out of really heavy plywood with steel edging on the corners, and it'll be a space you can throw your chainsaw and a bit of firewood and dirty boots and stuff. Well, there you have it. That's how we rationalize laying out our van, and I hope you picked up a couple of nuggets from our experiences, and I wouldn't expect that you would lay out your van the same way. Everybody has their own ideas and different preferences, and that's a good thing. That's what makes it exciting. But we tend to share ideas from each other, and I'm hoping that there was a couple of ideas in there that will get introduced into your van build.